Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we are going to be discussing Little Goodie Two Shoes, the video game, not the ye olde story. And joining me, as always, to discuss all things video games, one Pete Busby. How you doing, Pete?
I'm excited. Excited to talk about a game that was more sexual than I expected it to be. Neither good nor bad. Just making a comment on it. Fun fact for this week is about yawns. It's actually a fun one for once. So in 2021, researchers went and they collected data on almost 1,300 separate yawns on zoo trips, covering 55 mammals and 46 birds. So they just watched animals yawn for hours upon hours for this study. And they found out that yawn length is correlated to brain size and number of neurons. So the bigger your brain, the more neurons you got, the longer you yawn.
Huh.
And the theory is that yawns are for brain cooling. So the bigger your brains, the more cooling it takes. And that's why mammals yawn longer than birds, and humans yawn the longest.
Oh.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real banger, Pete.
Yeah.
My
Shortest
dog
yawns,
seems-
0.8 seconds, came from mice. Longest yawns, 6.5 seconds, came from humans.
I don't know. My dog yawns a pretty long time. He's got a pretty big head.
The dog is exceptionally lazy.
That's true. I had a fun fact that I posted in the Fun Facts channel on the Discord. Pete, did you know that owls can sit crisscross applesauce?
I did not. That sounds terrifying.
It is terrifying, and the picture I posted just says owls can sit crisscross, and the first reply just says it's always something new with these motherfuckers.
That's true. They don't have eyeballs. They have eye stalks. They fly silently. Owl's got a lot going on.
360-degree head rotation, basically. It's unsettling. Wet owls, you don't want to see them when they're wet.
They can just chill and sit crisscross and turn their heads all the way around.
You know, like you do.
It's fine. Yeah.
That's what you want in the corner of
Do
your
that
house.
all the time.
That voice you just heard is the Mistress of Games herself, Em Palladino. How you doing, Em?
Hello. I'm offended that I wasn't the one who picked this game.
I'm sorry. Is this appropriation?
Yeah, this is my whole brand, and the fact that I wasn't the one who picked it offends me.
Did you know about
So-
it before I picked it?
Yes, it was on the short list, and I was like, I'll get to that soon. And then I got scooped. So that's what happens. I'll just have to pick my gay games faster.
Yep.
So look forward to that next time I pick a game.
Now you have to pick the straightest game possible so that, just to do me one better.
Duke Nukem Forever. All right.
Hell yeah. Ugh. How dare you say that? And we are joined by a special guest on this episode because ZP demanded it. Chris ZombiePie Redacted, welcome.
Hello, hi. I'm glad that we're playing this game that represents, I would say, early adulthood lesbian love, and I'm happy that I, as someone who is both cisgendered and pro-capitalist, will represent a perspective that is seriously underrepresented in our society. As a result, I have signed you all up for summer camp. The pro-capitalist summer camp with Chick-fil-A's summer camp, where we will all learn the importance of industry and how to work and own and franchise a Chick-fil-A.
Oh,
For
God.
12-year-olds and above for $30. You
12
too
years old and
can
above.
actually learn how to work at a Chick-fil-A. So
Wait,
how we all doing?
wait, 12. Where are you allowed to work at a Chick-fil-A at 12?
That's a great question. We got to learn industry. I don't know if you heard this, but I listened to this during Marketplace. But there's a growing market of summer camps for, let's say, tech tycoons and the well-to-do left, because they are growing up. Their children are growing up and developing, let's say, anti-capitalist perspectives, and so they're shelling out money to teach their kids the importance of capitalism.
So they're sending their kids to Chick-fil-A school at 12 so that, after a couple summers of that, when they're of age, they're ready for the workforce?
Hold on. This is not 12 years old. This is ages kindergarten through 6th grade.
Yeah, those are 12-year-olds.
So 12's the top.
12 is the maximum.
Yeah.
Dang it. I can't sign up. I couldn't go to vocational summer camp for
What if
Chick-fil-A?
you signed up? What if
Damn.
you signed up for your niece or nephew and you were the chaperone to see it, absorb it?
Yeah, I'm sure they just let you watch the kids if you ask.
Welcome to our podcast about video games.
I didn't eat anything today. I
Good.
was a good boy.
Wait, I
Thank
do
you.
have one thing about Chick-fil-A that I'd like to share.
Fine.
Beyond all the horrible things about Chick-fil-A we could share.
Yes.
So one reason that Chick-fil-A is such a popular, franchise model is because unlike a lot of industries, like McDonald's, you have to put a whole bunch of money down. So maybe it's like a $2 million fee to get like a McDonald's location, and then you get 5% of your profits after that. Chick-fil-A is the opposite, actually. It's very low down, so like $250K, and then you give 20-30% of profits after that. So one of the reasons it's so popular is because the initial fee is so low.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So are you sending your children to the camp so that they can learn about Chick-fil-A?
I don't have any children. I don't
Okay.
plan to, as a good Marxist. But if I did, I would 100% not send them to Chick-fil-A camp. I would send them to, there's no Marxist companies I can think of off the top of my head. To that anarchist bookshop I used to patronize in Philadelphia. That's where I'd send them.
They'd be fine. It'd be fine.
Good
Just
call.
send them to the library and give them bus fare, and that'd be enough, probably. All right. Before we discuss Little Goodie Two Shoes, our normal housekeeping, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast at gmail.com. That is our email address. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Thank you for our new patrons. We got at least one or two new folks in the last week or so. So thank you, everyone who's joined. We are rapidly approaching having to play Mass Effect Andromeda. Once we get to
Yay.
40 patrons, or the equivalent therein of patrons, we will be playing. We co-own this with the Off the Deep End crew. So both podcasts will be playing Mass Effect Andromeda. So look forward to that. That's coming. That's a threat. If you joined at the $3 tier or above, I need to make this like an actual tier too. You would be able to put in a game into the slush pile for Off the Deep End to play, which is always a fun experience. If you want the best critics to break down your favorite beloved RPG, or if you just wanted to curse them with an RPG that's upsetting, you could do that. We have our merch coming soon. That I ordered the underglazed transfers yesterday, so the mugs,
Of course.
the mugs with the logos will be created soon, or creatable soon. So look forward to that. We'll have more info on that, and we have an anime podcast that will be debuting soon-ish. That will eventually be a premium show. The first hit will be free, as with all good drugs. But subsequent hits will be a tier on the Patreon. So go ahead. Yep.
Have we decided on a name for that yet?
No, we need to come up with a name.
No. I
What
think
the
that
heck?
Braden Arbitrary Water has some ideas, because he would be the one hosting it. But I think we are prepared to say, if not, we've already said what our first game, or first, we're going to make that mistake so many times. Holy crap. Our first anime will be Dean Stay Nights, the Fate Stay Nights anime that notoriously is well known for the meme, people die when they are killed.
Good rating right there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so look forward to that showing up on this feed. And then once you're good and addicted to that episode, and you're like, man, I want more every month, there'll be an option on the Patreon for that. So look forward to it. And even if you just join the Patreon at $1, you would get access to our Discord, which might put you on the Discord report.
The Discord report. Boo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. This week on the Discord report, CP, do you have anything to confess to this week?
No, so I didn't make this, but I reported on Pete. Are you aware of Swedish banana pizza?
We
I've
already
been
talked
made
about
aware of
this.
Swedish banana pizza.
Yeah,
We did
so
this
this
last
is a
week.
pizza. Oh,
We've
sorry.
already dragged you for this, for these crimes.
I don't
against
actually listen to the
humanity.
podcast. So
How
I'm
dare
sorry.
you?
What the hell?
I don't actually.
I
Oh
listened
no,
to
wait.
yours.
Now I remember. So I don't know how to cook green beans.
That's true. He doesn't know
You just
that.
toss them in a pan, bro.
No, but they've got fuzz on them. What the?
Not
they're
after
fuzzy.
you cook
I
them, they
like
don't.
Fuzzy foods.
How do you got these
I don't
moldy
like
ass green
peaches.
beans?
I don't like any of this. So people are talking about blanching this stuff and
You
like
can.
boiling it and putting in an ice. I got no time for that. I just want to eat the damn things.
Don't do
You-
any of that.
You could
That's-
steam them and it would fix it.
What happens when you go to the meat section and you buy meat? Like, I don't want to cook this meat. I'm just gonna eat this stuff. Like,
This is all red and bloody. I guess I'll just put it in my mouth.
I guess I'll just eat this raw hamburger meat. Don't want to cook it.
Mm.
Expose it to heat? No. This coconut. Why can't I just gnaw on it? ZP, I'm sorry
This is
to
a
say.
good reason for you not
What?
to listen to our podcast because
Yeah,
we do this
I know you
every
guys
week.
spend like at least 10 minutes making fun of me.
But
no,
I'm
just
sorry to say
what you
sometimes food requires preparation is all I'm saying.
Who does that? I buy those ready kit meals where you just pop it in the microwave. I've told this story before, but when I moved into an apartment, my mom was helping me clean, and she noticed that the oven was clean and was like, "Oh, Chris, well, you didn't need to clean the oven. I was going to clean it." It's like, "Oh, I just didn't use that." It's like,
It's never
wait,
been turned on.
What do you mean you didn't use it?
What is an oven?
I didn't use it. And my
What is
mom
oven?
was very, very upset that I spent an entire year at an apartment and I never used the oven.
Yeah, that's upsetting.
I wonder why.
I'm upset.
We did have one other thing in the Discord I feel like I should bring up.
There's a few things.
There's a few things.
One
And
Piece.
you go first.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, there was the big One Piece discussion.
Yeah, we're still trying to decide if people are insane for liking One Piece for 25 plus years. It's still going, and
Do we
that
have any
offends
fervent
some
One
people.
Piece watchers amongst our esteemed co-hosts?
Not co-hosts. We do have some Discord people who are like, have you learned about Senior Pink? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And-
I mean, I'm 1,100 episodes in.
Oh, you
My
are?
mom,
You
my
watched
mom
it?
is watching that show.
So you know about Senior Pink?
I do.
That guy
Yes.
was upsetting to learn about.
Yeah.
The egg-shaped man.
Yeah, he's weird.
There's a lot of
Genie.
weird characters.
Yeah, I brought up that it seems like it started because I said it sure is amazing how all of the women are the same person.
Yes.
Because the drawer of One Piece can only draw one type of lady for the most part.
He hates wastes. The fewer wastes, the better.
Yeah.
He hates waist and loves titties.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was
We
where that
respect
discussion came
Oda.
from. And it went along the lines of what you would expect.
Yep.
So that happened.
I showed a bunch of One Piece cards because I have to sort One Piece cards at work, and boy, those women.
Mhm.
They're poor spines. They're poor organs, really. Like there's
Yeah.
no room for organs. The thing I saw on the Discord that I thought people should know about is that apparently giant venomous flying spiders are coming to
yes.
New York.
Not if no.
A
Not
matter
if,
of when, not
but
if.
when. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
that's what
they're
they
already
say.
here apparently, or there apparently. So you two got out at the right time.
How is this Mayor Adams' fault somehow? It feels like it would be.
It's
See
the
if they
South's
blame
fault,
anyone.
apparently. Apparently somewhere, and I think it was Georgia, someone imported a Joro spider, which look those. Take a second, Google this thing if
Dear
you don't know what
God.
this looks like. These gigantic venomous spiders, and the thing that makes them special, other than their horrifying appearance, Pete, is that they can actually create a small web that can catch on the wind. and then they can basically parachute around.
Oh,
A
God.
balloon.
Yeah.
There are,
That's what they
but
call it.
they do eat butterflies, so it's not all bad.
Imagine being a butterfly and thinking you're safe because you're in the air, and then this fucking thing shows up,
Swoops out of the sky.
takes you down. Yeah, so that's horrifying. I don't like the idea of flying spiders. I know that they exist. I don't want them around me, and
I don't want to see them. I don't want to know. I barely want to know they exist elsewhere, across oceans,
Yes.
let alone coming to a city near me soon.
True.
So,
Yeah, it's a shame. First it was spotted lanternflies, and now this. Horrifying.
and cicadas.
Yep. Horrifying. All right, so without further ado, why don't we discuss Little Goodie Two Shoes?
Let's do it.
Sure.
Em, you said you wish you picked this game. Why don't you explain to the listeners what is Little Goodie Two Shoes?
Luckily, I prepared for this. Little Goodie Two Shoes is it's a Astral Shift game published by Square Enix. You are playing as Elise, who is a
Made of all work.
yes, that's what she described herself as, where she just does any odd jobs around town, and she is desperate to get out of her life of poverty, and so she decides to make a deal with the devil, literally.
She doesn't know that at the time.
She
but-
doesn't know it's
doesn't
the
know
devil
that.
because she's very stupid.
Yeah, she doesn't know that at the time, but literally, if you talk to anybody, they would be like, "Wow, that sounds like literal devil shit." And so she gets some very shiny red shoes, sort of a staple in these sorts of stories, and has to collect a bunch of stuff for
Just some testaments
the devil.
of her. Look, some testaments of her devotion. You know,
And
she
what
needs-
are those testaments called?
oh, they're called the tender flesh,
Uh-huh.
the sweetest nectar,
Uh-huh.
and good company. The good company.
Yeah.
Nothing
those-
Right.
sexual about any of that.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's all she needs to get because she's gonna be a good guest.
Hmm.
She's got to bring her
She's
host,
going to visit.
you know, some things that he wants. Yeah, so you are in the town of Kieferberg, which is, I guess to assume this is in Germany.
Yeah, nondescript Germany.
Yep.
Elise is living in a log cabin just outside of town with originally her grandmother. Shortly before the events of the game, her grandmother passes away, leaving Elise alone. At this point, she runs into another girl. What is Rosenmarine?
Yes.
Marine.
Who tells her, "Hey, you know, I was looking for you. I've had visions of you since I was a little kid, and I'm pretty sure you're going to meet him at the full moon, at the next full moon. He and him. You're not told who this is, but it's heavily implied. Pete, who do we think he and him is?
Oh, it's the devil.
Oh, it's the devil.
Yeah, most certainly.
Satan himself. Yep.
Yeah, so Rosemarine shows up with a tiny goat named Flake.
Lock.
Which, if you've ever seen the Vivitch, aka the Witch, seemed very sinister.
Uh-huh.
What's,
Someone was up with that goat
what's sinister about a one-eyed goat?
who
No
stares at
association
you
between.
like creepily.
Seemingly
at
is
night.
able to always follow your movements.
Mm.
Look, it's fine. Rosemarine's dressed in a straw hat, and
Uh-huh.
she only shows
She's got
up
a-
at night.
There's a voodoo doll clipped to her arm.
Yeah, and she's got a little goat buddy. And she says she's had visions of you. And she, you know, steers you towards perhaps completing a ritual.
She's really interested
Yep.
in seeing you complete that ritual.
She is.
She is so down for that.
She's like, "You're so lucky, Elise.
You get to do it.
Your wish is going to be granted. Whatever wish you want."
And
yeah.
what do you wish for?
She wants immediately to be able to live a life of riches and to be far removed from where she is in Kieferberg, because she feels like she's in a dead end of a career, a dead end social stock in this town. And so any promise of being able to break from that, she's leaping on, even though the first time she does, even before the first ritual, the first nightmare sequence when she first interacts with Rosemarine, it's a very creepy carnival sequence.
Yeah.
It's pretty suspect, let's just say. If I were her, I probably would have seen everything running around while I'm trying to break from this nightmare. I would have said, nope, peace, I'm done. Nope, no thank you.
Oh, you didn't like the pumpkins running up next to her going, "You're going to be late, you're going to be late." And then a carnival of nightmares runs alongside her, and then she wakes up in a cold sweat? You don't think that's good?
So, definitely, I mean, I don't actually feel like this is a legitimate complaint to have to this game because, it's something that applies to all media, but dumb protagonist syndrome definitely is a part of Little Goodie Two Shoe. But nonetheless, I think that there's a lot more going on than dumb protagonist keeps moving forward with plot for plot. There are other factions in this game. This is a religious community. This is I would assume, Catholic community. You find out that there's another force who opposes Satan and wants your protagonist to join her, very literally so.
Walpurga, the witch, who lives in the woods outside of town.
And she's a force of nature.
So before we go too deep into the story, I just want to go through a little bit of what the game actually is here, because, we're talking about you run into, Rosemarine, you're a maid of all work, Elise, or Elise, if you're playing in Japanese. And this game, I think, before you even play it, it makes a pretty strong impression just by its look and feel. How would you describe its appearance, ZP? Like, how does this game present?
It's a retro throwback, but it's a mixture of a bunch of different styles, which it's probably best represented in that first starting cutscene after you get through the prologue, where she's singing about getting those shoes, and even like the cutscene where we learn about
you boot the game up.
Yeah, you boot the game up, and it has that, and it's a merger of multiple styles. You have cardboard cutout characters animating stop motion style. You have a little bit of claymation here, and you have just these anime cutscenes that are very evocative of classic Sailor Moon, Magic Knight Rayearth, and then most notably probably Slayers, which the developer Astral Shift, who is based in Portugal, has made it very clear that they were inspired by Sailor Moon, Magical Knight Rayearth, and Slayers.
No Utena in there?
Yeah, a little bit, obviously. But this is a game that is actually a prequel to another game of their work, which is Pocket Mirror. And while this game was made using Unity, most of it was made using RPG Maker, which makes some of the look of this game kind of even more incredible, because you can see some of those character portraits and those character models in the game are very much the copy-paste RPG Maker character models. But for the most part, yeah, this game makes a very strong first impression with a cutscene that has not just one art style, not just two art styles, all of the art styles. And it is evocative of that 90s era of anime that was made using like actual cells and not digital paint. There are VHS filters. It's a very strong look. It's a time capsule to 90s era anime. And that is true to a certain extent, that it's all looks, but it also undersells the absolute creative heights the game reaches and like the wide breadth of those ambitions that Astral Shift, the developer, have for the game.
Yeah, and I would say like it's got scan lines as well. It's got filters on it that make it look even more 90s than it otherwise would, and it looks pretty 90s to begin with. And then the game also has kind of chibi pixel art, like spritey sort of characters. It's got some throwback gameplay because every day this game is a mix of a dating sim, and it's got mini games to it, and it's got this kind of survival horror element too. So it's
and
drawing
a
from
little
few
bit of
different
RPG
pools.
design because you have to worry about meters and things and like your stamina and that type of stuff.
Stamina and sanity. And
Yeah,
health.
but it's primarily a visual novel, dating sim, adventure game, puzzle game with RPG stuff. It's a little bit of everything. It's one of those games that's almost a game in its own category, considering all of this big merger of gameplay types.
Yeah, it's got a lot of different styles, and it's borrowing from all over the place. Em, how did you find the overall aesthetic? Like, did it hook you in immediately? Did you take a little bit to get a hold of the world? Do you feel like everything blends cohesively with all the different inspirations?
Yeah, I said in the Discord, one of the things that struck me at the very beginning, immediately when you load up the game, there is an anime opening that's like a minute and a half long or so. I was like, oh, why didn't I pick this? And so I was immediately like, yeah, I'm down. And then, like, you sort of have a expectation with a protagonist like this, and a style of this sort. It's going to be maybe a little fucked up. I guess I would say. One of the first things I noticed was when you press shift to fast forward through dialogue, it does like a scan lines, like you're fast forwarding a VHS tape. So I was like, ooh, that's interesting dynamic. So I wasn't sure if that was like going to break out at any point, like you're watching a tape, and maybe something would happen with that, but it never went that route. But it could have, and I would be like not surprised to see that.
Would not have been out of place if they were like, actually, this game is actually a secret, forgotten anime or something. Like some sort of meta narrative going on. Didn't go there, but would have been 100%.
I mean, in part, the art style shifts in this game are meant to convey those descents into what we would probably all know as a descent into hell, because there's a very big jump from where the land of the city of Kieferberg to whenever you go to hell.
There's
that first one does an incredible job because it is a literal shift from this pseudo anime JRPG, classic 16-bit JRPG to, this entire world is claymation. And that juxtaposes so abrupt that it makes the idea that you're transitioning to a different environment or different world all the more authentic. And every time you go to one of those pastoral shots of the game's like standard levels to its terrifying dungeons, it really is something. And the game manages to make those tonal and artistic shifts surprising and impressive even after the 6th or 7th time.
So like, since it's a dating sim game, you are basically using up chunks of the day. So like, you can go on dates, you can work as a maid to make money, you can advance the plot. Like sometimes the plot will eat up a chunk of time. And then there's always the last hour of the day is the witching hour. And that's where you do that descent, like you said, CP.
Yeah.
Things get messed up and weird.
Yeah. And also there's a downside to this, but when you make those transitions back to the normal world and Elise is just exhausted, her return to normalcy doesn't just make Warren G. Harding happy, it makes you happy because you're sighing with her.
Yes, I definitely found that I was appreciating when I'm back in the normal game. Did you find that the game had effectively made you scared of the witching hour, Pete?
This is a question I had, right? The game's like eerie, the game's creepy, but I wonder if like actually being frightened, like if the ability of a game to frighten me correlates with the realism of its graphics. Because like I found myself like scared from like a gameplay perspective, like, oh no, my resources, am I going to last? But I don't know if I was like frightened in my life, if that makes sense.
I thought that some of the levels in the Witching Hour were more frightening than other. I thought that the claymation environment, especially when it has a couple of those jump scares, like when you start investigating things in those caves, and like a literal claymation monster jumps out to you, and maybe the penultimate level in the Witching Hour, which is that ice snow level. Those are a lot more effective than the weird Terry Gilliam level that plays the Astor Piazzolla accordion music. Some of them are better than others. Some of them just feel like they're trying to convey this like painterly style, and just them going through just some really good artistic shifts, but creepy. I would say the first one was definitely the best in terms of being creepy, because that Neverhood look, that claymation look, is definitely strong. And then that entire last sequence, if you decide to go through with the ritual, is genuinely horrifying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're sleeping too on the terrifying horse thing that chases after you on its broken legs.
Yeah, the broken horse thing, or even that moment when you find out what your grandma actually did to make you come together, and then Walpurga presents itself for the first time as like that dead, desiccated corpse of a deer in your house.
Yeah. There's some good scares, for sure. I think I definitely agree, ZP. The first level where you're in the Witching Hour, the first and second time you go to the Witching Hour, are probably the strongest because you don't know what's going on. You don't have expectations set. You're also the lowest on resources at that point, so you're in the most gameplay jeopardy as well. And I think the puzzles in those sections, like the very first section, you're just kind of wandering around. I guess it should be the second and third time you go to the Witching Hour, because the first time you're just in a castle, and there's like candles you need to dodge. That one's not that freaky. When you go to the first claymation area, and there's like claymation hands that erupt out of the ground and scratch at you, and you go into the caves, and there's these moths that have eyeballs on their wings, and they like you need to attract them with your lantern, and they chase after you until you turn your lantern off. That mechanic is not the most straightforward to grasp.
No, not at all.
So you're more likely to actually take damage and actually be scared of the moths. In the later levels, like the level you were talking about with the accordion music, kind of in the wheat fields, figuring out how the enemies work in that level is pretty straightforward. Same thing with the water level later on. Like, you can see the enemies. They might be a little bit dangerous, but the telegraphing of how they work is pretty straightforward. And at that point, the game has kind of shown its hand as a horror game. So I think I was more ready for it. When it showed up the first time, I was like, oh man, claymation, and what is an enemy, what isn't an enemy, because the enemies are claymation and the walls are claymation. Like it was blurrier. Pete, did you find a similar experience?
Yeah, honestly, claymation has scared me since Claymation Fighter.
Clay Fighter?
Do you remember? Yeah, Clay Fighter.
Yeah,
the actual title.
Clay Fighter
I
63
rented
and a
that
half.
game. I rented that game once when I was a kid, and it terrified me, and I've never forgotten it.
Who was your go-to?
How dare you
Clay
say
Fighter?
that about the works of Ray Harryhausen? Actually, no. That skeleton scene in Jason and the Argonauts by Ray Harryhausen is genuinely terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I can see why this would terrify you.
Yeah, isn't that scary?
This is frightening.
You don't like Goo Suede Shoe? Or
Excuse me?
The characters of Clay Fighter.
Oh, I don't. I'm just looking at the pictures. I don't know any names.
But anyways, I mean, the game has a pretty easy start to its first day where you don't need to make a lot of choices, and the choices that you do make are very much railroaded for you. And then, yeah, like that first time you actually go to the witching hour, it's in that mansion, which is a pretty easy sequence. You shouldn't take too much damage there, and figuring out what the puzzle is there is pretty straightforward. But I think that this gets to like where some people, this game sometimes breaks for them, which is these puzzles and a lot of the sequences in the witching hour are very much once you know the solution, you're done.
Yes.
And when you don't know the puzzle solution, it is sometimes just you banging on your head until you solve it by brute force.
Yeah, you are just taking damage until you figure out the one weird trick, and then it's trivial at that point. Did you at any point get stuck, Em?
Did I get stuck? I mean, there were some areas where, like, I would do the puzzle and I would take a bunch of damage, and then I would get to the end and I would have like half a heart left, and I would be like, let me just optimal route this, so I don't spend as much time and money on buying bread. And so I would reload my save, and then I would do like a more optimal version of the run. Like I did that.
The game does actively encourage you to do that, though.
Yes.
It says save and save often. Try things
Right.
out, and then try things out again. Like
The
it
thing
gives
is-
you a lot of saves and actively tells you to do.
Right. The thing was, I would often just like die because of taking too much damage, and then if you haven't saved, there are no quick saves in
No
this
natural
game.
checkpoints.
Yes. So you will just go back like half a day. And I was like, well, I guess I'll save every time I see one of these save points. And then when you get into the witching hour and you start doing the like, dodge birds that come out of the trees sequence, that was the one where I was like, okay, I know what the trick is now, so I'm just gonna reload really quick and do this better. And so I did that one like a couple of times. I don't think I ever got stuck like on anything.
I have to say that moon phase puzzle in that penultimate dungeon is a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, that one got me.
That one sucks.
That one's just, I would argue that one is just actively bad because they have those weird wraith things that will just kill you and then reset your entire position. Like that sucked.
It just takes a lot of time.
As a designer, how do you feel about save scumming? Like, this is a game that I think actively encourages it. Like you said, it tells you, they present you with a lot of save points. You can save early and often, and there's no penalty for reloading. So once you figure out the gimmick, you can decide, like, actually, you know what? I don't want to have to heal all those hearts and use all those resources. Instead, I'll take no damage.
Yeah.
And then hoard them.
Yep. Like, I don't think it's illegal to save scum.
You're not going to send me to game jail?
You are not going to go to game jail for save scumming. Like, I don't know. I play some games that are less forgiving of save scumming, shall I say, but I'm still going to do it. Like, I play Dark Souls games. I play Souls-likes, and you are not supposed to save scum for that. Hold on.
You know what? If anyone wants to report you to the Dark Souls police so that they can delete your save, I'll stand up and say that I will look out for you if anyone tries to turn you into the Dark Souls police, Em.
Thank you.
I just feel like so this game's one of the core things is that it has a lot of meters for you to be mindful of. So you have your sanity meter, you have your food meter, you have your health hearts, you have your relationship meters, and I think that's it. But then also you have all of the items that you need to collect for the
end game.
ritual.
Yeah, you need to
So
do the key
it
items.
becomes almost like a bar management sim in a lot of ways, because before you go into these dungeons, you have to kind of like do this mental math of like, okay, do I think I have enough healing items to do this dungeon? No, but also my sanity's really low, and then the Walpurga oil is actually more expensive than the food, so what should I do here? And so it leads to maybe the most authentically survival horror thing in this game, for better or worse, which is you really being stingy with your items for as much as possible. And when you get to a point where you've used so many of your items that you feel like you've ended up in an inadvertent fail state, you just go back to an older save and then resolve the solutions with fewer resources.
So because this is kind of a horror game and a failure-based game, like a lot of times, there are some times where the game will just kill you. If you give the wrong dialogue choice or you bump into the wrong enemy, like some of these are auto deaths. Did you find at any point, Pete, that there was friction in how the game, like how much stuff you had to redo because you picked a bad dialogue choice or you didn't understand a mechanic and something just one hit killed you?
I don't play too many horror games, so I'll caveat this answer with that up front. I think every horror game I've ever played has been explicitly for this podcast. But it seems to me that like horror games are not like a one-shot deal, but like it's your first time through. You know what I mean? That's the point that matters. So like I didn't really care so much about restarting things. I shouldn't say that. I didn't really feel the impact of restarting things because in my mind I had already had my one time through. You know what I mean? So like that restart was just to get to the next place where I would once again have my one time through. Like after you've seen a scary movie, you know it. So you know what should be scary and therefore it's less scary.
Yeah. For me, the friction came from if you had a cutscene before the thing that killed you. Because this game does not have the best it doesn't have consistent fast forwarding, I should say. Like some cutscenes can be fast forwarded, like you said earlier, Em, with like the scan lines and everything. Some cutscenes just can't for some reason. Like you just can't fast forward. You have to mash through. There's some cutscenes that can be skipped. Some cannot. So if you happened to, if there was a cutscene, like for example that scary horse you mentioned earlier, if you did not,
scary horse.
If you did not escape that scary horse, it is a one-hit kill. It will just end you. It's a encounter where you, instead of running away, you need to jump to the side at the last second. If you didn't do that, there's a whole cutscene before that horse comes after you, and that is one where there's no fast forward. You just have to mash the A button.
That was the one where I put the game down for a while because I got to, there's like one like go through, you do like a bunch of dodging blocks falling, and then there's a island on the middle, and then you pick up an item, you have a cutscene, you have another talk about the statue that's on there, and then you go again and do another dodge sequence, and I kept messing up that second sequence, and I kept having to do the first one over again. I was like, this is some bullshit.
Yeah. So sometimes the checkpoints are a little bit further apart. Sometimes I just found like towards the end of the game, there was a situation where it was a boss fight and you had to give 3 dialogue choices and you had to pick the right dialogue choice every time. And anytime you gave the wrong dialogue choice, it just killed you. And I was like, oh, cool. I need to redo all of these battles because I picked the wrong 50-50 dialogue choice. And sometimes, there's a logic to the dialogue choice, so you could have made the right choice every time. But anytime you didn't, you just had to redo the whole boss fight.
So there's a context to that.
Please give me the context.
There's a lot of context to this. So Astral, actually, I hate to say this, but you almost would need to have Braden talk about the legacy of Corpse Party, because by hook or by crook,
Can
Corpse
you
Party.
explain to the listeners who do not know what Corpse Party is? What
Corpse Party is a
And your fellow co-hosts who
independent.
don't know what Corpse Party
Yeah.
is.
Corpse Party is a Dojin Soft video game series that is the indie horror game from Japan. It is a game that was made entirely through, I believe the original version of Corpse Party was for the PC 98, like dating back all the way to the early 80s or 90s. And so this game's horror elements are pulling notes from indie self-published classics like Ao Oni and Corpse Party. And while those games continue to be profoundly influential and still direct hundreds into game design and horror storytelling, they've never been good because those games are punishing. Like the horror comes from forcing the player to see visceral scenes through failure, and that failure is very arbitrary, but that's the point. And I've oftentimes said this before, but Corpse Party might be the video game industry's closest equivalent to Leni Riefenstahl in that it is deeply problematic in how it depicts things and its notions of mental health. Yet, despite that, despite it being a profoundly problematic work, it continues to be one of the most underrated games in terms of its pure influence. This game is also working, yes, with Unity, but you're talking about a game that's working with RPG Maker primarily. So doing dialogue choices using RPG Maker, the amount of text that they were probably able to put in for your dialogue choices, which I agree, the way that they work, especially when you're being interrogated with the citizens of Kieferberg, like picking the wrong choice, it feels like I picked the right choice a lot of the times, but the nuance of what my options were was not properly communicated. And again, I hate to take the developer's stance, but they're Portuguese, and I do believe that some of this game's signposting and communication issues comes from a translation problem, because just think about this. This is a Portuguese-developed video game that was localized by a Japanese company.
Aping a Japanese style.
Set in medieval Germany.
Yeah. So the fact that it is coherent for more than, I would say, 90% of the time is a goddamn miracle, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think your point about Corpse Party, like indie horror games, very often gave you arbitrary death. Like arbitrary death is their tool.
Arbitrary death is how I convey, if I'm an indie horror game of this kind of this type, I get you. I drop the juice, as we sometimes call it. David Cronenberg likes to call it the juice, which is basically the gore. It's like, my horror is giving you the juice.
This is different from game juice.
Different from game
by
juice.
the way.
Is I scare you. There was another director who said there's three options if I want to scare you. I can either kill the cat, I can skin the cat, or I can violate the cat.
Yeah.
And those are three different approaches to conveying this is an evil force that you are going up against. And in indie games, it's like, I got to show you blood. And the way I'm going to show you blood is by forcing you into these almost unwinnable scenarios. And through trial and error, maybe you'll figure it out.
Yeah, because anytime I found that I was actually gated by the game, I wasn't dying from running out of hearts all that often.
No, it's the one-shots.
They throw healing items at you like mad. And if you've played a pretty basic action game before, this game is sub that in terms of the challenge it's throwing at you. You're not often getting caught by enemies, in my experience. So if it's not the 50-50, you're not going to see the death scenes, right? You're not going to see Elise get torn in half, or the broken toy version of Elise that's on the game over screen, right? You just wouldn't see it because this game it doesn't present challenge in that way. The puzzles aren't that challenging. They usually tend to just be explore the area until you find the keys in one way, shape, or form.
I don't know.
Or dodge some stuff.
Yes, but I feel like this game by trying to be a little bit more complex, it ends up being less coherent. like I said, the worst puzzle is that one in that ice forest where you have to like find pillars with different moon phases. But there are other times when, I mean, there's a sliding block puzzle for God's sakes in this game, and it
There
sucks.
Sure is. It does suck.
It
Stupid tile puzzle.
Oh God! Why? It's like that's the ultimate sign. I've always said this because as someone who ranks adventure games based off the quality of their puzzles, that is the example of you gave up.
Lowest common denominator.
It's either that or like
I like
the Tower of Hanoi or Tangram puzzles. Like that's the ultimate sign. You gave up. You gave up. Anyways, that aside, as contrived and exhausting as those dungeons and sometimes those NPC interactions are, the interstitial moments are actually pretty good if it weren't for those goddamn minigames.
Yeah, so let's talk about
the mini games.
Let's talk about the dating sim
mini
part.
games.
There are two that are absolutely fine. I perfected the apples. I actually got really good at Kiss the Rat.
Yeah,
and
so
then
just
there's
to give
one
some
that's
context
awful.
To give some context here, when you're during daytime, outside of the witching hour, where there's these puzzles and everything, you are either going on dates, talking to townsfolk, or doing odd jobs. And the odd jobs are represented by these 4 mini games, which are Kiss the Rat, Chicken Frenzy, Chop Chop Chop, and what is the name?
The apples.
The apples. It's like
it's raining apples.
It's raining apples, right? So how would you describe? Pete, describe to me Chop Chop Chop.
Okay, chop, chop, chop. You're chopping wood, and they either place a block of wood or like a chicken or an anvil or something you shouldn't chop. So your options are either chop or kick the thing that shouldn't be chopped off the block.
Yeah, so it is just reaction time. Are you pressing one button or another button, and depending on what is put in front of you, you have to respond with the right button press. If you respond with the wrong button press, Leb Kuchin, who's one of the characters, shows up and whacks you on the head. She's a nun. She's like, don't kill that chicken.
She's a real cutie, too.
Yes. ZP, since you mastered It's Raining Apples, why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
It's the apples drop from the sky. There are a couple of poison ones that you need to avoid, but it's that Atari 2600 game where they're dropping bombs. I'm blanking on what that game is.
There's a Game & Watch game too, where you're catching people who are falling in little battles.
Yeah, it's like a fire. You're a fireman.
Kaboom! Kaboom! It's called Kaboom. Is the 2600, but yeah, that one's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. They start to drop those apples in like diagonals, and as long as you can time moving your character, you could probably get all of them. And that one's pretty easy. And then the next two are terrible.
Tell me about Kiss the Rat.
Kiss the Rat is a minigame you play with the kids. You all have sticks and a plush rat toy, and you are knocking
No,
the
it's
rat.
a dead rat. It's an actual dead rat. Yeah. If you talk to them more, it's the corpse.
Oh, well, nice. Well, anyway, the mini game itself is you are knocking this rat corpse back and forth, and with a bat, you have to. If it's blue, you hit one button, and if it's yellow, you hit the other button. And
the rat gets faster.
Yes, the rat gets faster. You have to time your swings in order to land your hits at the right time. Otherwise, you are going to kiss the rat. I don't think there's any way to make your opponents, the other two kids playing, kiss the rat.
You cannot make the kids kiss the rat. You will kiss the rat if you screw up.
If you screw up, yeah. And
so how do you? I never won. Does the game just end? Like, is it a high score? Like, you're always going to lose.
It's just a high score. It's just a high score thing. Okay. I actually found it easier at the higher speeds than the lower speeds because it just gets to the point to where it max out at the maximum speed, and the minute that you hit it, you just hit it immediately again, and by the time it's coming back. So it's actually easier when it's faster than when it's slower.
That is what I found as well.
And then the last one I'll describe is Chicken Frenzy. You have to collect eggs from a bunch of chickens, and if the chickens will waddle back and forth like towards you and then away from you. When they are away from you, you can pick up their eggs. When they are near you, they will bite you if you reach for the eggs. And if you reach while the chickens are moving towards you, they will sprint towards you and bite you. And that makes you unable to pick up eggs for a brief moment.
Gino, I don't disagree with your assessment at all. Point of contention. Can chickens bite? Does biting imply teeth?
They have teeth.
Chickens have teeth?
They have ridges on their beaks that are basically teeth.
On the inside of the beaks, yeah.
But anyways, no, Chicken Frenzy is maybe the worst variant of Tapper I have ever encountered my entire life. It's the worst version.
It's a messed
Tapper.
up version of Root Beer Tapper.
There are too many inputs needed because you need to
move up and down.
Yeah, you go up and down, and then you need to turn left or right, and then you need to push the button to pick up the egg.
And there's a slight delay between all of these button presses.
Exactly. And the chickens are only away from their food or their eggs. They're going to get food for 5 seconds. And so in the time it takes to actually move around and get their eggs, they're probably coming back to bite you. So
don't Google chicken teeth. Just a heads up.
Yeah.
For anyone who's thinking of doing that. Don't do it.
Yeah, so the ideal situation for Chicken Frenzy is you get into a nice cycle, because once you take the egg from a chicken, it takes a little bit longer to make a new egg. If you are failing to pick up the eggs, it's very likely that all of the chickens stay on the same cycle, and you don't actually have a window to collect multiple eggs at once. So you just get into this doom cycle where you pick one egg, and then all 5 others – there's basically 6 slots where the chickens can be. All 5 other chickens are on the nest at the same time, and then you just – it's inefficient, right? You're racing against the clock. So you really want to set up a situation where you always have somewhere to go to pick up an egg where it's 100% safe. And all of these activities...
They're very necessary because these minigames are your primary source of income unless you really know how to explore the worlds and pick up the hidden trappings, which are time-sensitive oftentimes.
There are side quests
like getting the
and
loot
items.
trash. Or you're willing to burn your sanity by finding those golden girls and then hoping that they give you an item that you can sell as loot trash.
Yeah, so we should talk about those golden girls before we discuss the dating sim game. Yeah.
But really quick about those mini games. They're also retro games in that they have this very 16-bit look. If there was a little bit more variety to them, and a couple of them had been a little tighter, I really do feel like they would have been fun. The problem is that I oftentimes always had to worry about money because I was worrying about going on dates. I was also someone who was trying to do the investigation side quest where you're trying to figure out what's the deal with all of these weird notes, which is also something that involves a completely separate hidden dungeon in the game. Mm-hmm. So I didn't actually have a lot of time to play these mini games, and they only give you a certain number of times you can play them. There's no trial, there's no tutorial. They just jump you in there, and
you can always save scum.
Hopefully you're ready to deal with
coward
this.
and a cheater.
You can save scum, or you can pay 5 whatever the T is.
And maybe my favorite thing that you can do is you can accidentally kill yourself, because there's the option of having Rosemarine assist you, which doubles your ability to complete these mini games, but she burns an extra loaf of bread.
Two loaves of bread.
Two loaves of bread.
Way
and if you don't have which is way too many, correct. And if you end up picking that option and you don't have enough food, you just bop out of the mini game, and then she at least just passes out and dies.
Yes, that is something that I didn't fully... I thought it was 1 extra loaf at first, and I screwed that up once, and I was just like, oh, great. Okay, so I need to have 4 of my 5 bread meters. I need to have at least 4 full if I'm going to ask Rosemarine to help me, because she makes... And how she helps is different depending on which minigame. Some minigames, she's barely helpful. Some of them she's pretty... almost guarantees an S. if you know how to play the minigame.
Yeah, I would not say she's ever necessary to complete the minigame. You should probably never use that option because if you aren't getting an S or at least an A on the minigame, you shouldn't be doing that minigame at that time slot anyway.
Yeah. Do another minigame. Just do do the other option. Which minigame did you find you had the most success at, Em?
I got pretty good at I think that I never actually did the wood chopping minigame. Now that I think of it. I did it once and then I didn't really go back to it. But it was fine. I mean, and then what was the other one that was not the chicken one?
Chicken Frenzy
apples.
and it's raining apples.
Apples is fine. Apples very easy. That was probably the one I used the most to get money when I needed it. But my first priority was always going on dates and investigation. So
yeah,
very very low priority to actually do these mini games, I would say.
Yeah, and the difference. So if you get an S, you get 60 trifling. If you get an A, you get 40. And then I never got lower than an A, so I don't know what happens if you get lower. Is it B 30? I think I got one B for playing Kiss the Rat. I'm bad at Kiss the Rat.
30, 20, I think.
Yeah, so
there's C as well.
Yeah, you don't want to get those. So A and B or A and S are not actually that difficult to get, especially if you have Rose and Marine help you with Chop 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 was the one I was the best at. So we've talked about going on dates. There's a whole dating element to this game. Em, do you want to walk through the romantic interests and what dating looks like? Yes.
So there are 3 romantic options in this game. There is Rosemarine, who is your witch companion.
She shows up and says, "Hey, you should go meet the devil in the woods at night."
It would be really cool if you go and meet the devil.
It'd be very metal of you.
Yeah.
She breaks into your house.
Yeah, she breaks into your house and becomes your live-in maid, basically.
There's a period of time where you feel like Elise is being a bit of a pill when it comes to Rosemarine. And then when you start to realize what the whole deal with Rosemarine, it's like, oh, no, wait, no, you were right. You were right. Go back to that. She does not deserve this.
You shouldn't trust the person who broke into your house and told you to go meet with the devil in the cold moonlight.
She actually was evil all along. You were right all along.
Yep.
Really, the person who every character refuses to even say his name is evil.
Yeah.
But
wild.
But hey, surprise, she's the worst romance option.
It depends.
She showed up at your house.
There's a clear winner.
I agree.
Okay.
But we'll go through them. Who's number 2?
Rosemarine's first. Number 2, I would say, is Freya. She's your childhood friend. Yeah?
Yeah, she's dumb strong.
Okay.
She picks up her dad.
I guess.
Throws him around.
True. She kind of has, I would say, the least amount of stuff to her. She was your... You think?
Go ahead,
you don't think?
No, I mean, you do find out if you interact
compared to
with
the
her
other 2.
No, when you interact with her in some of the optional scenes, you find out that prior to the events of the story, she is the other maid that is competing against you. And rather than be rivals, they actually become friends. So she's technically supposed to be like your Gary, but then it's like, wait, we don't need to be crappy to each other. Let's be
kiss.
friends. And also, what if we hold hands?
Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And her dad is actually like one of the few characters who stands by Elise throughout the story.
Her dream is to be a seamstress. That's a fine dream. It's just not a terribly interesting one.
Yeah, but
she's just nice. She makes you flower crowns. She's fun.
She's lovely. She's inoffensive. Everyone seems to like her. Her dad likes you, which is something to be said for this town.
True.
And then the third option is
Lebkuchen.
Lebkuchen. The C is silent. I found in the English dub.
Oh.
So it's Lebkuchen.
It's not in. It's not in Japanese.
Yeah, Lebkuchen.
Lebkuchen.
Yeah. Also, before I forget, Rosemarine. Elise always calls her in dialogue Rosemarine.
Mm-hmm.
She cuts out the en, which drove me crazy.
And it drives Rosemarine crazy. She's like, "That's not my name."
Eventually, she just stops correcting you, and you just call her that for the rest of the game. I think the only place it is actually fixed is in the epilogues. Very specific epilogues that she is featured in. Anyway, so Lebkuchen, she's like she's not like
She's
an
an
altar girl. What's her
She's a nun.
position?
She is a nun.
She hasn't taken vows,
Right.
seemingly.
Yeah.
But it seems as if she is in the process of either.
She's in
She
nunnification.
She
Yeah, she's
seems
in
like
the-
she is in the process of transitioning from.
Is it
Taking
called the
her vows.
novitiate?
Yeah.
If it's nuns?
I
I
don't know.
believe so. But she also has not completely shirked away her family. She's being raised by her grandmother, I think, right? And so it's implied that her parents have died or something.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she's a
Her
novitiate.
grandmother owns the bakery, but is usually in the church.
And Lebkuchen actually, she runs the bakery. She bakes everything, and then her granny sells it.
Mm-hmm.
Which we love you, Leb, for giving us that free bread before going to those
gives us
dungeons.
2 free breads, which is a lifesaver at times.
Literally.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And so the actual dating sim portion, you can have a meetup planned, and it will be marked on your map with a little heart.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go there, you will have a scene, and you'll have some dialogue options. And if you pick the right dialogue options, you will get a heart in that character's tree.
Should we announce our primary romantic interests?
Sure.
I mean, there's an obvious right answer.
Okay, 1.
Wait, 1,
2, 3.
Lebkuchen.
Marine.
Ugh, you people.
Okay, so Pete and I both went Lebkuchen. M picked Rosemarine, and ZP picked Freya. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so M, why did you go after Rosemarine, the shady witch?
I will say I didn't avoid the other two. I was very close on all of them.
Okay.
So real quick, I have to just mention this. There's that first couple of days where if you forget to go on a date for the girls twice in a row, you just lock yourself out of that relationship for the rest of the game. That is shitty.
I locked myself out of Freya because her and Lebkuchen have the same date time.
You have to do the math there if you want to pursue all of those relationships or have them be viable into the end game. And I realize this is an Atomi game, and that is an Atomi trapping, which is just the dating sim part of this game. But you really want to see all of them. You really just want to see all of them.
Lebkuchen.
Okay.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Freya.
I know. She is super strong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so go ahead. Rosemarine.
So
the canonical relationship, by the way.
Yes. Rosemarine, canonical relationship. I did not dislike the other two. I just figured that she was the one who was pushing for the story option, I'll say. And so I was like, let me see this one first. And so that's the one I did.
Okay. And she also, most of her dates are at odd hours. So it is easier to end up dating Rosemarine.
Yeah. You very rarely have a overlap between her and the other girls, I'll say.
Yeah. ZP, how was the Freya relationship?
Freya is maybe the most tragic of the outcomes when you decide to go through with the ritual, and she is also the most satisfying good ending there is, because you just piece out of that town and go on and become the owners of your own small business making tapestries and clothing, and you're all seamstress together. And hey, yeah, the guy that likes capitalism likes the ending where you do a capitalism.
And
you open your own business.
You open a franchise.
Yes, you start to open your own franchises of tapestries.
like Arby's, but clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Pete, how was Leb Kuchin's dating path?
It was good. I mean, I haven't learned much, but if I've learned anything from adult entertainment, it's that nuns are real wild. So I saw an opportunity and I seized it.
Did you buy one of those Nuns Gone Wild calendars back in the day?
Nah, for real though. So like, I picked her, Leb Kuchin, because her story seemed the most interesting, if you accept at the very beginning that Rosemary's evil, which I did, and then Freya just seemed pretty straightforward. But I was like, ooh, Leb Kuchin, like, she's conflicted about her, place in society and whether or not she really has a vocation as a nun, and she's sort of like locked into this life, but maybe you can help her get out of it. And it just seemed like a more interesting scenario than the other ones.
And she feeds you.
She does. She's a provider, and she has a level of insight into you that the other two don't seem to.
Yes, she definitely holds Elise to. She understands when Elise is lying and when Elise is hiding something. Like, she's not a fool. She understands Elise inside and out, the good and the bad, and embraces her for who she is. Which I thought that was the most adult of the relationships.
Her version of the ritual ending, I would say, would be the saddest,
Yeah,
or at least the most fucked up.
Yeah, it's maybe... No, I think that Freya begging to see her father one last time as she's crying in pain is maybe the most fucked up.
Yeah,
but Leb Kuchin is just like, I always knew the truth and I covered for you. You killed me. You betrayed me. I'm never going to forgive you. Fuck you.
You are going to burn in hell, and then you fast forward several years.
And then it turns out that Elise became a nun and is living in regret, and then her angel comes down and absolves her of her sin.
Leb Kuchin's angel.
Yeah.
Important.
Because she's
important note.
I don't think Leb Kuchin can do that.
Well, she does.
She's an angel now.
I'm just saying, like, all right, like religiously, like if we're just going by Catholic dogma, and it's a pretty Catholic game, you'd have to be a priest to do that.
This is not dogma, but
that's a movie. Kevin Smith.
It's one of Kevin Smith's greatest movies.
It is a good one.
So yeah, like, you pick between these different characters. It's hard to end up with you can't end up with true love with all three of them. I don't think. I think you have to pick and choose. Like, there just aren't enough hours in the day.
It narrows it down at the end.
There are some real good endings.
For sure. And we shouldn't go to, like, there's some stuff we, I think, missed, like with the Golden Girls. Throughout the game, you run into these golden silhouettes, these girls who you can talk to. They deal you sanity damage every time you talk to them. But they all just keep telling Elise foreboding things. Like, I remember when I was in your shoes and I was going to have my wishes granted. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that.
There are some that were totally down with doing that. Like, there are some that are still like, oh, it's great. You're going to enjoy it. It's the best time of your life. They've completely drank the Kool-Aid.
You run into one golden girl that is clearly your grandma. And Pete, what happened? Where'd Elise come from?
Oh, man. Trying to think of, like, succinctly how to say this. Basically a previous deal with the devil, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out that Elise's grandma made a deal with the devil and sacrificed her husband or lover or someone important to her.
No, it's a female lover.
Okay.
And then also, because it's creating life, Ozzy had to pull life force from Wolperga. So a part of Elise is the forest. And if you do one of those endings, Can I say what happens with one of those
So
endings?
let's go. We'll go into that in a minute, just because that's
The endings are going to be their whole other thing.
There's a lot of
So-
them.
So
They're all great.
There's these forces constantly telling Elise that something's wrong, and she just never listens. She never puts together, like, you have to get these three things: the tender flesh, the sweetest nectar, and the good company. You get the tender flesh from a crow who's like, their names are in, like, they're devils. Their
Yeah,
names are,
one's named Aziel.
one of them is Vree. What, like, they're not, it's not good. Elise should figure this stuff out.
There's a crow. There's a snake.
A
What's the other
serpent.
one?
A tempting serpent.
Never good.
Yep.
Never good.
And I mean, the third one is Ozzy, who's a
Ozzy
goat.
himself. Yeah.
Oh, right. And then
Who
there's
is
that
the goat.
right. But before you go to Ozzy, there's also that really bad boss fight in the
That's the
church.
snake again.
Oh,
yeah, that's the
God.
snake who becomes the one-hit kill boss who, if you answer the questions wrong, he kills you.
Well, it's not just that. It's like there's a real shitty part where it like inverts your controls.
Yep.
Yes,
and
Flips it
then
upside
just-
down.
But Pete, the testaments that you have to make.
Yep.
How does that work? What are they? Actually, what is the tender flesh
Like, what are they actually, or like in the
Yeah.
game?
in the game? What are they
Okay.
actually?
I mean, they're a metaphor for sexuality, but we'll set that aside for
They're also
now.
the body and the blood.
Yeah. In the game, one of them's your hair that you bake into a blood that crows ripped out of your. You break into bread, crows ripped it out of your head, and then you turn it into bread. The other one is a mixture of holy water and your blood that you
And
put
tears.
and tears, excuse me, that you put in a vessel that snake demon gave you. And the last one is an effigy of your true love, which they're not going to stop at the effigy. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. So, like, you have to go through this whole process, and like the whole time, there's all of these signs that it's gonna go bad. And Elise is constantly like, "I didn't know that it was gonna be evil," and it's like, Elise, you moron. Like,
Do you remember that
can-
crow plucked out your
She's a-
eyes?
She's
Killed
a
all the horses?
storybook protagonist. This is
Hey.
fairly common
Hey.
for like fairy
Hey.
tales. Yes.
Remember when Rosemarine said he was a benevolent entity?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
benevolent, and then
She sure says a lot of things, huh?
he gives you the worst dinner party ever, like ever.
So yeah, you the time when you clearly meet your grandma and she tells you what's up, and Elise is like, "Oh, that sure was weird." That was the one part where I was like, "Come on, Elise, you're in your house. You're in a dark version of your house, and there's like a tapestry that seems to have like a pregnant belly, and then underneath it is a corpse of a deer." And then a ghost of your grandma tells you, I don't regret making you at all, Elise. My partner would have gladly made the sacrifice a second time. She's like, well, I guess that's something I don't have to think about ever again.
Oh, Grandma, you're so
You're so-
crazy.
And then there's the side quest. So this is, I think, where ZP will tie into the that ending with Walpurga. Did any of you do the side quest with the notes?
I didn't get very far in it.
Okay.
I wanted to do it.
I saw it through to the end.
Yeah, I saw it through to the end. I would say that this is a more satisfying conclusion than getting all of the Golden Girls, because the Golden Girls are literally just like, oh, yeah, turns out we're her. We were your previous sacrifices and scene.
Blanche.
It's like, man. But yeah,
Betty White.
investigating those notes. So the biggest problem with investigating those notes is that those dungeons do damage to your sanity over time while you're there. So they're actually time sequences. So
Yeah,
they're
they're the
absolute pains in the ass.
Other than the Golden Girls, they are the only things that deal damage to your sanity. So, like, they are the only reason the sanity mechanic even matters, really. Because the game will just give you enough sanity healing items for the Golden Girls. But yeah, like, those side quests, first you need to go find an area by the crossroads. There's a maypole, and there's a cave behind it. And then that's going to lead you to an old windmill. And in each of these areas, you're going to find some stuff that points to maybe the grandma did something with the devil to make Elise. You know, she seemed to find this baby in the woods, and she on her deathbed said she made a deal with him. But Walpurga, the witch, who is like a benevolent, or I guess an ancient spirit that's kind of the benefactor of the town, it's always referred to as a she and showing up as an old crone. So the priest in town is like, this doesn't make any sense. You know, the grandma said that she made a deal with a he. Something's wrong here. And the more of those notes you find, the more you find that he's trying to figure out who the deal was with, and to weed out the evil in his town. And he views Elise as a source of, or a symbol of that evil.
There are a few times while you progress the story that old lady figure presents herself, but for the most part, the idea that there is another malevolent force at play here, it's mostly through this side quest, which is a damn shame. And it turns out that the forest doesn't like the devil because part of its blood was taken to create Elise.
And the witch is like, you are my kin. The devil should have no claim on you. And if you finish that side quest, the priest will try to kill you. Because he knows that you're the witch.
Yeah, you find the secret, like, underground catacomb thing he has going on.
Yeah.
And then he shows up and is like, this was all to find you. And then what happens?
Well, one, he's responsible. So there's a series of unfortunate events happening in Kieferberg.
Yeah, it's leading up to this big, like, festival.
Festival of Walpurga.
Yeah, there's two series of unfortunate things going on. There's, as you are advancing the story, crows infiltrate the town when you're working with the crow god. When you're working with the serpent, it starts raining everywhere and there are snakes in town. But there's also bad stuff happening unrelated to the witchcraft you're doing. So there are some horses that get loose. And it ruins one of the local merchants. There's a kid who gets kidnapped and ends up in the woods. There are some goats that get their necks slit, and they get beheaded.
And tongues ripped out.
And tongues ripped out. It turns out that the priest was doing all of that to create a dark ritual to basically sacrifice Elise to get rid of the devil. So he's doing his own dark ritual. And after you find the catacombs, he tries to kill you, and then Walpurga shows up and snaps his head off.
Or Walpurga then absorbs you.
She possesses Elise's body because she wants to live the life of a mortal woman.
No, that's actually the ending where if you fuck up the ritual, ending with the notes is just she decapitates you and then smash cut to black. The possession is when you do the ritual deliberately poorly and place everything improperly.
Or accidentally poorly, as some of us might have.
So that's what you can find out, is that the priest was behind a lot of the bad stuff in the game, and doing that whole line of side quests results in a bad end. Like, there's no way to learn that information without getting a game over screen, which is interesting.
Should we do a quick sidebar on the real historical Walpurga, since we've mentioned her name quite a few times?
Yes.
So Walpurga is a legitimate Catholic saint, Saint Walpurga. In all honesty, there's not too much that's interesting about her. She was a nun in a convent for a while. Then her and her brother started a religious mission, and when they died, she took over. Pretty standard sort of, saint stuff for the early to mid to late 8th century. The most interesting thing about her is that when she died, they buried her and put her bones in this sort of like rocky niche, like a little, what would you call it? Like not a mausoleum, a little catacombs, a little tomb. And eventually it started leaking a miraculous therapeutic oil, which allegedly healed diseases, sicknesses, that sort of thing, which is where they got the oil of Walpurga from in the game. So she was a legitimate Catholic saint from. I'll find it eventually. She was born in Dumnonia, roughly corresponding to modern Devon, so Anglo-Saxon England.
Okay,
That's her.
so she's not a witch.
No, regular saint. Nothing, like I said, nothing too interesting about her.
Okay. So I guess now let's talk a little bit about what endings we each got. So I got 2 endings. One was dying by completing the side quest and having the priest kill me, or having Walpurga kill me. What endings did you get, Em?
I got the one with where you fuck up the ritual, not intentionally, and then I got one where you do Rosemarine's bad ending, I guess, where you sacrifice her to Ozzy. And then I got the one where you don't do that, which is better, much better than the alternative, I would say. We'll talk about all of them when we cover all of them, but
yeah. The endings you can get a ending where you sacrifice your true love.
yes,
All 3 of them.
All 3 of them, and they have different endings depending on who you sacrifice. All of them are sad because it turns out that sacrificing your loved one to the devil is bad, even if he gives you riches beyond your wildest imaginings, because eventually he comes and takes your second-born child.
yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Also,
Which is the plot line of the game that comes after this, Pocket Mirror.
yes. They also have you married to some like lord who
Yep.
And he sucks
and he sucks and you don't like him and
because you're gay as hell.
yeah, because you are a little lesbian and this is not what you signed up for. And then you have some twins and the second born gets taken by the devil. That's Pocket Mirror.
It's one thing I feel I should call out because of how this game looks. The characters are canonically 18 and up, which
Yes.
it was a little bit
Okay.
because of how this art style is deployed in actual anime, where like the members of Sailor Moon are supposed to be what, like 13,
Yeah.
14,
Yeah, they're in
12?
high school.
Yeah, like they are all supposed to be super duper young, and then in this game, Elise looks younger than Sailor Moon and her friends, but is canonically 18, which
Yeah.
I appreciated. I appreciated
real-
actually having an 18-year-old look kind of like an 18-year-old.
It's a real reverse Birdie Wing sort of situation, you know?
Yes.
Thank you for bringing it back to
Yeah,
something
it's a
I can
deep cut.
recognize. Yeah.
So there's the sacrifice for each of the characters. There is deciding not to sacrifice them, which has a different kind of romantic ending with each of them.
Yeah.
Then there's a bad ending with each of them where you do not earn their love. So if you don't have enough hearts, you don't have a true good company, and those are pretty
Wait.
bad.
What happens with those?
So
Rose and Maurice is weird.
Rosamarine's is probably the worst. So Lebkuchen and Freya, basically they snap out of their trance that they're in when you're leading them through the woods, and then they call for the villagers, and the villagers come and they burn you at the stake.
Oh,
Yep,
right.
yep,
So there's
yep.
2
I
ways to
forgot
go
about
about
this
this.
one.
So you can actually also get those by picking the wrong dialogue choices and you break them from their trance, or you can pick someone that you don't have a full relationship with. So there's actually 2 ways to get these. But yeah, with Rosemary, I forgot about that Rosemarine ending. But yes, you get burned at the stake, which is also what happens if you max out your suspicion meter. We kind of didn't talk about this, but one of the recurring themes is needing to worry about your suspicion and having the villagers actually go through with, a majority of them believing that Elise is a witch. There's always going to be those hard, I think you're a witch people, but if you do a good job of managing your suspicion, there will always be more than Freya's dad there to be at your defense saying she is not a witch. She's a good person.
Yeah, and there's this little girl, Muffy, who is blackmailing you.
Blackmailing you.
And if you feed her, she will reduce your suspicion. If you don't feed her, she will raise your suspicion. And she knows that Rosemarine, you're presenting Rosemarine as your cousin, and Muffy is basically blackmailing you that she'll tell the town that she's not your cousin.
Are there any like dialogue trees that I missed that make Muffy seem more sympathetic? Like, is she have some like weird tough home life I don't know about?
She's clearly a 17, 18-year-old. She's maybe a year younger than you, and she is still going through puberty. Basically, is what it's implied, is that she's constantly hungry because she's still going through puberty.
And her parents are not feeding her enough.
Okay. So she's kind of sympathetic.
A little bit, but she sucks. She's blackmailing you. Don't do blackmail. And
Also,
one other thing we didn't say about the suspicion is, like, if Rosemarine doesn't help you with your jobs, she will say stuff to the villagers that will cause them to say, hey, Rosemarine sure is doing suspicious stuff, and if you don't explain it away well, that will raise your suspicion too.
Yeah. Rosemarine is walking around town while not participating in your gathering apples or whatever, just saying witch stuff.
Saying witchy nonsense.
Yeah.
She's just like, hey, have you sacrificed your goat today? And it's like, no, what?
The one
she wouldn't
cutscene-
accept my rosary? She's just shy.
The one cutscene that Rosemarine gets where she has her singing bit is actually maybe one of the more poignant moments in the game. It's a J-pop sequence with like an anime cutscene, but you basically find out that she was raised very similarly to Elise, and then also her grandmother was condemned for witchery and was a pagan. And she's trying to teach
it's a family business, you know?
Well, yeah, she's trying to teach her daughter her pagan ways, and they're kicked out. And she's like the last of the true pagans of her town. And she's like building the funeral pyre for her grandmother as she passes away. Like, I thought that was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, she's pretty rough. Her story, if it wasn't all the devils that she worshipped, it would be a lot better. If I wasn't so scared of her and her devilry. But yeah, like, that happens. Her ending,
where she merges with you and then
Yeah.
into the
In a
tree.
Yeah.
she's like, it turns out I wasn't beckoned here by the devil. I was beckoned here by the eldritch Walpurga witch spirit, and we must join with her. And so,
We'll be together forever.
Yeah, she puts you in the tree womb, and then you get absorbed into a tree with her forever.
There's a lot of wombs involved.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about the ending where you misplace all of the pieces, and then the Mother Earth summons you, and you find yourself dropped into a hole, and then it took me a while to notice this, but you're in a womb with an actual animating, pulsating cervix.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a heart at first, and then I realized, oh no, this is a womb.
Yeah, and
This is
the body
motherly
snatcher's part.
cocoon.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the body snatcher ending where she basically absorbs your being and becomes you.
Yeah, and all the
And
villagers,
all the villagers
like, wow,
seem to like her a lot better.
yeah, you're great now.
You're
like
way
a
less
totally
uppity
different
now.
You're like a totally different person, huh? Not gonna think about that.
Just the
All right,
festival.
bye. Yeah,
We love festivals.
just love that festival so much. It made me so much nicer.
I almost wish that there was more stuff about that festival. There's like a slight undercurrent that they actually don't execute upon that feels as if it feels like the original Wicker Man, where it's like, oh no, the town is in on the cult stuff, right? Like this Walpurga stuff is the town siding with either Ozzy or the forest.
The notes kind of say that. So, like, if you do the side quest, basically the church co-opted Walpurga as a saint to redirect the cultists into the church so that they stop being pagans. And the cult basically gradually thinned out, and eventually the pagan origins of Walpurga get subsisted into the church. And this the maypole and the festival is basically a co-opting of a ritual that they used to do. And that's why the priest is like, no, we have to do it. It's really important that we do this because he knows that Walpurga is real.
Yeah.
And that you need to do tithings to it or else it will kill everyone.
The maypole itself is it's the symbol that you see around every of these ritual sites. Which I was like, as soon as they started building it, I was like, suspicious, isn't it?
It's a midsummer.
It is a midsummer.
Or a lottery.
They do a midsummer.
And they have no qualms about putting Elise on that thing and setting it on fire
and burning it.
When they decide she's a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that I found kind of interesting that like the church basically took this local cult over slowly but surely. And then
it's a commentary on syncretism of like early Catholics and early Christians like co-opting it's basically a callback to like the actual origins of Christmas and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. So any other closing thoughts? I feel like we covered I think we covered all the endings. Like there's 9 endings or 10. There's 10 total endings, I think. You know, a good or a bad with a good ending with each love interest, a bad ending with each love interest, and a you got your wish granted, isn't it messed up what you did ending with each of them. Then a possession ending and one where you end up dead a different way.
Yeah, I mean, look, to Little Goodie Two Shoes' credit, like nothing in it is as deeply problematic as some of the things that it's pulling inspiration from. I think it's a game with wholesome and naturally evolving lesbian relationships, which are the true highlight of the game, as well as like actual stylings. Like the game is packed to the gills with style. And it just utilizes all these many disparate artistic mediums and aesthetical choices to create this almost picture book-like inspired world. At the end of the day, though, man, I just wish I enjoyed playing this game more. I mean, like the actual anxiety-inducing, like, are all these meters in the right spots? Did I pick all of the right choices? Figuring out some of those dungeons the first time. Like, the act of playing the game isn't, like, a game breaker. I wouldn't say that I hated playing this game. It's just there are some parts of it where I feel its RPG Maker roots are a bit more obvious than other parts of it.
Yeah, for sure. For me, like, the big thing is I appreciate that this game has a didactic story and it commits. Like, it says, look, Elise is going to – all of these endings where Elise goes through with it are bad, right? We are going to teach a lesson here, and there's no – even though until you get to the ending and you are faced with the actual choice, the game basically forces you to go through the path of being a naive maid who's trying to get out of town. Like, there's no way for her to be wise.
That's the interesting thing about getting those more gruesome and bad endings is – you have to be the primary actor to get those endings because getting the good endings is actually easier than getting those bad endings. There's even an optional dungeon, which is an absolute pain in the ass that you have to complete if you want to get those bad endings. The game screams at you that this is the right path. You take this path if you actually want to do this, but you're going to be miserable. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually kind of an inversion of the Atomi dating novel format, which is the bad endings are actually the easy ones. Getting the good endings is a lot of taxing work and bullshit. So that's actually a good inversion of the tropes.
Pete, any closing thoughts on Little Goodie Two Shoes?
Sure, I'll let them go last. But mine is, as it usually is. There's definitely an economic narrative going on here, too. Like the fact that the maid of all work, the servant wench, more or less, is the one that's getting accused of witchery. Honestly, like the historical witch hunts didn't necessarily work that way all the time. A lot of the time they accused low-class women of being witches, but in some of the cases it was high-class women that they accused so they could basically take revenge on them or take their stuff or all that kind of stuff. But in most of the cases, I shouldn't say most of the cases, there's a historical argument that the reason women were accused of witchery was because they were so often involved in work like dealing with livestock, tending to children, that sort of thing. Where like if there was a calamity and these things would happen naturally, I mean, kids are dying of smallpox all the time, they would just blame these servant women because they were around and they were easy to blame. So, I mean, I don't think it's surprising that Elise becomes the one accused of witchery, and she's also this sort of outcast maid of all work on the margins.
Yep. Unfortunately, she was a witch.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
complicates
that's the only problem here.
It depends. Depends which ending you take.
That's true.
She's working her way up to it.
Yeah, she's definitely witch adjacent.
Yeah.
Yes. Her origins were witchy, let's say.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
Her grandmother was definitely a witch.
100%.
But, they didn't get to her in time, and she died of natural causes. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this game is probably one of the few. I would have to look at our backlog of the games I have picked, but this one is like very overtly stated that Elise is a lesbian and stuck with it. I mean, unless she marries that guy, but it doesn't mean anything. So I can appreciate that.
She hates it.
Yeah, she hates it. She's
She
not.
does. She's not like, this is what I was missing all along.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, the overarching plot being so overtly Elise likes girls, I approve of. I like that no one gives her shit about that. It's mostly the witch thing. And as I said, I don't know if I said it on the air, but the suspicion of being a witch being a metaphor for being a little bit gay is strikes a chord, shall we say.
Not since Boss Game has that metaphor been deployed so well.
Yes. What, your church evil? Church evil boss game? Church evil? Church evil here? I think the church may be evil. What do you think?
Look, that's what these games we've been playing say. Just wait until we play one where church good.
I'll await the day.
Yeah. All right. Which means I think now whose pick is next? Is it Pete?
I believe it's mine.
I believe it's Pete.
Okay. Man, this game this week had a lot of story. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
It did.
What if we played a game with radically less story?
Okay.
And I feel like all games these days are turning into roguelites,
Yeah.
And I'd like to lean into this trend.
Okay.
So there's a game, and it's free.
Hades 2.
Hades
Oh my
3.
God.
We're getting a jump start.
Yeah.
There's a free game that's been blowing up some of the corners of the internet that I'm on sometimes. And I've started playing it, and I've sunk a whole bunch of hours in it already. So I'm going to selfishly pick it and make y'all play it now, too. And we're going to do it before Nintendo catches wind.
Oh my God. Oh
and
my
takes
God.
it
Yes.
down.
Say it. I've already been playing fucking 50 hours of this game.
Oh,
Say
God.
So we're going to play Poke Rogue.
Yes. I love this game.
Where can I get a hold of Poke Rogue?
It's on the
PokeRogue.net.
internet.
PokeRogue.net.
I would have to emphasize what Pete just hinted at. I would say play this game as soon as possible.
Play this game right
gonna
now.
This is going to get DMCA'd pretty soon.
This is going to get taken down immediately.
Okay,
Pete, I was going to tell you about this game last time we recorded, and I was like, oh, wait, I forgot.
It might cost me my job, honestly, the amount of hours I'm putting into this thing.
Okay, I'm getting a login page, and it
Yes.
says no email required. Is this the
Yes.
right place?
Yes,
PokeRogue.net?
Correct.
Yep.
Yes. There is
Okay,
no
get
email.
in there. Get in there, folks, before they take it down.
Fuck yes.
All
Pete,
right.
I could kiss you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pete.
Yep, this was a good one, Gino. Solid pick.
Thank you, Em.
Thank you. Thank you for not giving me extra work for next time. Boy, howdy, have I put hours in this game.
I know.
And thank you, ZP. Thank you for joining this special episode.
Yeah. Don't pick Bulbasaur. It's about picking the coolest Pokemon, not the most lame-ass dog Pokemon.
True.
And thank you, dear listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast at gmail.com. And you can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.